sono stato a Milano in giornata, partendo da qui all'alba, in realtà no all'alba, passando qualche ora. A Milano l'evento in Utili per la presentazione di un libro, pensavo fosse un evento pubblico, invece no, era un evento chiuso, a porte chiuse. Ho intervistato un grande trader, ho incontrato un grandissimo trader, un trader, ex trader famoso con storia di successo, e l'ho intervistato, però in questa foto non si vede perché è un po' nascosto. Eccolo qua dietro, Gary Stevenson. E abbiamo fatto un'intervista interessante, buon Gary Stevenson, eccolo qui, col suo libro The Trading Game. Ha presentato il suo libro alla libreria Utili, il libro è già in circolazione da un sacco di tempo. Mi hanno girato del footage, quindi è stato fatto un video di qualità un po' scadente, ma vedremo il successo. Ho preparato un sacco di domande per il buon Gary Stevenson. Vi racconto una cosa divertente. Qui ho domande che mi ero preparato, 2 pagine di domande. Ho fatto un po' un deep dive sui suoi video e le sue politiche e ho preparato 2 pagine di domande. Gary Stevenson, a parte personaggio interessante, stava in pantaloncini corti, ma quelli proprio da calcetto, insomma, in maglietta bianca, ribelle. Lui Gary Economics ha un canale sulla sua impegno politico, chiamiamolo. Lui è, a detta sua, un ex trader che era di grandissimo successo e ha lasciato il mondo perché gli faceva schifo, e adesso vuole tassare i ricchi per diminuire la wealth inequality. Lui fa battaglie contro la wealth inequality. Ho visto molti suoi video, da una parte apprezzo l'impegno, apprezzo anche, diciamo, l'etica che c'è dietro. Non sono convinto che le soluzioni che lui propone siano accettabili, però sembra veramente convinto di quello che dice e apprezzo questa cosa qua. Gli ho fatto delle domande, ho cercato di mettere un po' in difficoltà, lui ha le sue risposte, quindi gli chiedi come ti chiami, però poi i ricchi diventeranno ancora più ricchi e i poveri diventeranno più poveri. Ok, perfetto. Cosa ne pensi del trading? Ma i ricchi diventeranno più ricchi e i poveri sempre più poveri. Ok, però rispondi alle domande. È un po' difficile farlo uscire dal suo personaggio, però ho anche nel viaggio in treno fatto una binge watching dei suoi video. Alcune cose sono interessanti. La storia è interessante, poi se cerchi online trovi gente che dice che in realtà lui non è legit, non è vero quello che dice. Dopo la terza birra si scioglie un pochino. È stato interessante anche il post intervista, anche se è durato poco perché sono dovuto scappare purtroppo. Comunque niente, ho il suo libro autografato, Mr. Rip autografato. Forse lo leggerò, forse no, ma che ne so. Questa è più o meno l'inquadratura. Ho del footage da editare, ma si sente male, si vede male. Speriamo di farci qualcosa.
I love your story because I wouldn't say in a similar situation, but I want to write a book. I want to be more active politically to change things. And we are not on exactly the same page on how to change things. That's why I'm interested in asking you a lot of things about. First of all, okay, let's start with I have a lot of questions. Obviously, for you already discussed these things many times. I hope I will offer you some alternative and some questions you've never been asked. Am I a bad guy for owning stocks?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No. I think it's a bit of a mischaracterization of me. Like, I don't think, I own stocks. Yeah, I'm a rich guy. I don't think it's wrong to be rich. I don't think it's wrong to own stocks. Really, my criticism is it's a systemic criticism over the situation we're in. I think that inequality will get worse. I think that living standards will get worse. I think that change will be like relatively quick. I think it will get a lot worse. I think it will get a lot worse for your average Italian family, for your average British or American family. And it's not your fault, it's not because you own stocks. So somebody has to own the stocks. It's a systemic problem. I'm not against wealth. I'm against inequality growing consistently in a way that squeezes out the middle class, in a way that squeezes out the government. But, even if you were a billionaire, it wouldn't be your fault. It wouldn't be, in my opinion, the job of the individual, I think the individual is an individual, but is also a political actor. And I think the question is, how do you use your political power? Are you trying to make the situation better, or are you trying to make the situation worse? I'm a pretty rich guy. I would like to get richer, but Have you ever disclosed how rich you are?
No, but I don't even know it. Actually, I went on. Do you know Piers Morgan?
I made zero, so please.
Oh yeah,
I'm not worth 10 million.
My style is I monthly do my net worth update in.
Okay, you got a spreadsheet.
At the moment, at 2.4 million euros roughly.
Mine is probably not dissimilar.
It's definitely less than 10 million euros, I'm sure.
I was not interested in the budgets.
Yeah, I don't have a spreadsheet.
What
so.
level of wealth you have? What do you think is the right way? I will start with questions that I'm really interested.
Yeah, sure.
Then we'll go more political. How do you invest, and how do you think retail investors should invest? The untold question is: should retail investors aim to beat the market and try to do trading, or they're better off?
It's a boring answer, but I think your average retail investor is probably best to have a diversified portfolio, stocks and shares. I have quite a lot of gold. I think gold is a decent thing to have in the portfolio. I own property as well. Obviously, property is only available to people above a certain level of wealth, really. I do trade as well, but my trading is like long term. I'm not like, I will look at the account today, but like I didn't, since I've been on holiday, maybe I did one trade. I've been on holiday for a month now.
Like value investing, so you better find
Long term. Yeah. So like I have like leveraged bets. I have leveraged bets on, but the thing is, I was an interest rates trader. So like being an interest rates trader is kind of betting on the value of money. And I think the value of money will fall. So the way to do that is to borrow money and buy assets. But this is a relatively high risk play. And I wouldn't, although if you think about it,
leverage over.
yeah, although if you think about it, anybody who buys a house with a mortgage is essentially doing the same thing.
Sure.
But I think your average person, honestly, yeah, buy a home, build a portfolio of, I have like global value stocks.
Values. Okay.
I prefer value stocks at the moment.
Even though in the last 20 years they kind of suck.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't trust this tech AI stuff. And of course, maybe
We are on the same page. Italy.
yeah.
You don't like Bitcoin. I'm surprised that you like gold. I mean, for me, Bitcoin correlates with Nasdaq, with tech stocks, but it has the same like intrinsic value, slightly less, like it's zero for me.
Yeah.
As well, but gold is not that distant.
But yeah, gold is
Still something.
I buy gold leveraged. So really, the gold play is a way of betting on the devaluation of currency.
Okay.
I don't think. Well, I mean,
There's not
gold is a defensive play, right? But I do have property, I do have stocks. I think probably property is the best right now. But if you're gonna borrow money to put a bet on something, you want to make the risk low because you're increasing your risk by levering. So I'm not a gold bug. I'm not one of these like gold is the best things. But I'm very pessimistic on the economy. So I've got the value stocks, I've got the gold. But I'm also leveraged. I think asset prices will go up, but I want to be holding the safer assets.
It's pessimistic about the economy, but you think asset prices will go up.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a reflection. Yeah, interesting this because I binge watched I think all of your videos. You said several times that you got rich by betting against the economy. Can you detail a little bit what the?
Yeah, so after 2008, my big trade, at the time I was a professional trader for Citibank, I basically bet interest rates would stay zero. It's a relatively clean, simple bet. In hindsight, it's correct, but it's, at the time it was, especially 2011 when I had a lot of success on that bet, that was a very, very counter consensus bet at that time. People really thought the economy was coming back. People really thought inflation did come back actually for a period of time. And people thought the rates were going to go there. And that was my first big chunk of money. And I continued to bet on rates staying zero up until about, the last time I did it was, I think 2018. Whenever there was some optimism and the rate predictions would go up, I would just bet them down, and it always worked. Then in COVID, I flipped. I stopped betting on that because in COVID, what I saw was enormous amounts of money printing. I saw an enormous increase in inequality, and I always saw from the beginning, if you don't believe me, you can check.
It's been until 3-4 years ago, there was this kind of inverse correlation between stocks and bonds. I mean, when the economy was doing good, interest rate went up. When everything goes south, they lower. But during COVID, it started zero. Yeah, things were going south. How can you bet that they raise interest rates? It was a risky bet.
Yeah, well, I stay away from the rates. But in COVID, I thought, to be honest, I did see inflation, and I predicted inflation in my first video, June 2020. But I thought the safest bet by a million miles in COVID was just to buy assets. Because governments, the thing which nobody recognized at the beginning of COVID was, but somebody ends up with that. The amount of money printed was fucking enormous, so big, and somebody ends up with that money. And you follow it through the system. You know, in my first video, you see this money is going to end up with richer people. The numbers are insane. The UK number alone is £1 trillion. The US number is like 10, I think it's like $12 trillion now. You give the rich £1 trillion, $12 trillion, you know, Italy's going to be another like,
They put this money in properties and
they buy assets. They buy assets. It's as simple as that. They buy assets. They're going to buy properties. They're going to buy gold. They're going to buy stocks. And, you know, that's how I do it. And I just thought the cleanest way to bet on this is to buy a fuck ton of gold. In hindsight, I probably should have bought a bit of stocks, a bit of gold, but I was extremely pessimistic on the economy. And I probably should have, I used to be an interest rates trader. So this is like, I'm going to start betting in real assets. I went heavily on gold. Now, obviously, that bet has been phenomenally successful, right? All assets are way higher, but especially gold. Stock market is up higher as well. Now I'm quite diversified, but I'm still leveraged along gold and assets, gold and stocks and property. But
so why do you need leverage at this point? Don't you just, I'm
a money trader. That's my profession. You know, like I don't ever want to be long money. I think money is going down. Money is going down. Like, because the economy will get worse.
borrowing as much as
The economy will get worse. The living standards will get worse. The path of least resistance politically is to print and spend. And I think, you know, we've had a lot of print and spending. I think there'll be more print and spending. Historically, at times of economic collapse, governments always print and spend.
That's also what's giving value to Bitcoin. I mean,
Yes, well, you know, I'm pessimistic on Bitcoin, but
I'm as well. All my haters are,
mine too. Okay, yes.
I hate them. I think, I'm a huge lover of sit and deal. I don't know if you know, Burn It With Fire. But there is a guy, a researcher in San Francisco, who does a talk about the strategies to which destroying the environment and getting people getting addicted with betting. Yes, yeah, clear. Now crypto, even with all the meme coins, is just a giant betting machine.
I want to be clear, the guys who lose money, they don't post on Instagram. A lot of people are losing and have lost a lot of money. And that's even with the price going up.
Today is larger than 10 years ago, so they would say, okay, yeah, there is plus minus, but we created wealth.
But yeah, there's no wealth creation. There is no wealth creation. Of course there's paper wealth creation because that's worth money on. But like, this is like every bubble in history. It goes up and it goes up and it goes up and it goes up and it goes up. And all the stupidest people are holding when it falls to zero. And a lot of real money has been transferred from ambitious young men all over the world into the pockets of a bunch of horrible dickheads in San Francisco. That's the end result.
I cannot play David's advocate
On this, but I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I want so many things. I need to prune my questions. What do you think the AI, the machine learning revolution and new language model, how are they gonna help or not help society today?
I'm a little bit skeptical on AI, but it's obviously going to make a difference. It's going to put people out of jobs. It's funny because, you know,
Squeeze even more. Right?
yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to see this going any way other than further imbalancing power between the rich and the rest, because, you know, these machines will be owned by big corporations, owned by rich people, and they will be used to compete, working people out of jobs. So I think it's going to push wages down even further. I can't see it doing anything positive.
What if, I'm trying to think solutions, like what if this will create some basis for universal basic income? What's your take on universal basic income?
So universal basic income, to be honest, I think it's a little bit of a red herring. Because the first thing you need to recognize is universal basic income is quite similar to a welfare state. In the sense, a welfare state could be described as universal basic services.
Yeah, well, then you pay in proportion, you get less if you are richer. I mean, universal basic should be like for everybody.
Yeah, it's not the same, but it's similar, right? Like, and if you want to but we exist in countries where the welfare state is being basically dismantled for the reason that it's unaffordable.
Well, Italy is resisting, even though it's unsustainable.
Yeah, it is. It's trying to resist. Yeah, and credit to the Italians for trying to resist.
But debit, so more than credits.
Yeah, of course, and I would encourage Italians to continue to try to defend their welfare state. But the truth is, wealth is being accumulated by the rich. The government's going further and further into debt to support this welfare state. If you exist in a society where you are failing to protect your welfare state for reasons of affordability, then the only realistic way you're going to fund a universal basic income of any reasonable size is further cuts to the welfare state. So if you were to say to me, let's bring in a UBI and fund it with taxes on wealth, 100% I mean,
Sure.
I'm down, I'm there. But the truth is,
If
we're failing. I'm campaigning just to tax the wealth, and we're not winning this fight. If you cannot tax the wealth, you're going to bring a UBI. How are you going to fund it? And probably what you have is, you have a lot of actually wealthy, very wealthy people supporting this idea because they want to use it to destroy the welfare state. And if you replace the welfare state with the UBI, at the end of the day, the welfare state gives specifically to the people in need, and UBI gives to everyone. So you're taking money away from single mothers and the disabled to give it to Elon Musk, and I don't think that makes things better.
I mean, $800 per month is not why Elon Musk will do it.
Yeah, but if you're funding it by dismantling the welfare
I
state,
can see there's a lot of discussion on funding like on global tax. No, you automate jobs out. Okay, then this donation, the robot could pay taxes and go.
Yeah, robot taxes.
robot tax is a form of a wealth tax. Yeah.
So you are a huge advocate of wealth tax or taxing the rich. I've seen several videos of yours. You were mostly discussing on how to create a political,
World for it.
yes, there's a video 46 minutes long, which is essentially on there are two problems: how to tax and then how to get political power, how to things. That's an amazing political tractate. I mean, I saw that as a political step by step what to do. But on how to tax, you usually say that maybe there are people more competent, or what's your idea if out of the how would you implement this? There's several templates. For example, the people can shield their wealth. I mean, people have there are many in Italian. There are many rich people there, and if you get their statement, they have nothing. Like trust here and there, company in Panama. How do you guarantee that people?
I mean, the first thing is you need to deal with evasion. You need to deal with, I don't think it's impossible to deal with evasion. I think evasion is tacitly accepted by a political class.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about evasion. It's about shielding money in some way. Like, hey, it's that you are poor. Your money is on your other vehicles, or they're privately. I mean, Elon Musk is super rich, but he has stocks of SpaceX, which you thought seem to sell stocks.
The first thing I want to say is, yes, I want to force rich people to sell assets.
And I want to be clear. I want to be clear as to why. Okay.
Increasingly, all of the assets are owned by the rich. If you do not, and they never need to sell because they have large amounts of passive income. If you create an economy where all of the assets are owned by the rich and you never force the rich to sell, you will obviously make it impossible for non-rich people to buy. This is just a simple situation. If I give you all the cards, put you in a situation when you never give away any cards, then I will never get any cards. We want to force the rich to sell. There's no way, you cannot solve this. This is a kind of absurd situation. People want to exist in a situation where the people who own the assets never have to sell their assets, but they simultaneously want working people to be able to buy assets.
These two things are not simultaneously possible.
You can increase the pool of assets, which people have been trying and failing to do. Yeah, of course, you can just magic it. You can just magic it, apparently. We can just make everybody rich. Listen, there is a fix. It's not easy to increase the supply of assets. We exist in mature economies which are growing slowly, okay? And the wealth of the rich is growing quickly. Yes, 100%, I want to force rich people to sell their assets. And if you don't want that, you have to accept that everyone who is currently poor in your country will be poor, and their kids will be poor, and their grandkids will be poor. Listen, at the end of the day, your country and my country have choices to make. How do you want to distribute your assets? Do you want it to be distributed at birth or based on work? And we lived for 50, 70 years in economies which gave working people assets. That's finished now. It's done. You have a choice to make. Either you tax the rich or you accept that we go back to feudalism. Do you want feudalism?
No, absolutely.
Yes, I want. Listen,
This is the way that it works, okay? Either the old sell their assets or the young never buy assets. It's not complicated. So I want the old and the rich to sell their assets so that the young, I don't want this to be a country that is owned by the dead.
Have you ever thought about like second of the concept where it's just like if you can become Elon Musk, you will put 150% of your effort in creating something. If you know of stars that if you have a success on something while you are building your company, force you to sell 10% this year, 5% next year, 3% the year after, you will get demoralized and just go to work for the government.
I want to tax
The risk, there is a risk. I'm just paying David.
Yeah, I want to tax the work and the profits less, and I want to tax the hoarding more. So at the moment, you're in a situation where if you make the money, you're paying 50, 60% every year when you make it.
That's crazy.
But then when you have it, you can keep it forever. Okay, this is like a kind of, once I get to heaven, I will stay in heaven forever. But it's impossible to get to heaven. Listen, at the moment we have let's be realistic here. Most people who get rich, they get rich nowadays because exactly. So then what I
I'm
want
a
to
living example that it works the opposite way. I'm also from like a shitty neighborhood.
It's possible, but we're not kids nowadays. Even I'm 38 and, okay, I did it as well. I come from like a poor family and I made money, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but the truth is, you and I are the exception. And for people younger than us, it's just getting harder every year. It's even the path I took, I don't think it's possible now. So realistically, I think if you tax the rich more, you can tax working people less. And then of course you make it easier to do.
You ever try to make this more quantitative? Like maybe if you want to tax zero, like work, you end up taxing 10% wealth and nobody will even want to have work.
Yeah,
It's hard to make it quantitative.
And plus another question correlated to this is that that's a global problem. How can you solve it locally? I mean, let's say you tomorrow you have a magic wand and change the UK.
I think I think it would be difficult to act the UK alone. I don't think there's nothing you can do the UK alone, but as much as I'm British, I have to accept the UK's current place in the world. We are not like a global empire like we once were. The power of the UK alone, the power of Italy alone is limited. But we don't need to act the UK alone. You don't need to act Italy alone. Like these economic problems, they're getting more and more serious relatively quickly. I think the majority of the problems, inability to get good wages, inability to afford housing, they're the same all across Europe, all across the Western world. We can act together on this, and okay, these guys, okay, fine, we're going to move to the Cayman Islands. Okay, I'm Elon Musk, I moved to the Cayman Islands. Well, where do these people's money come from? They own property in the West. Sure. They own land in the West. They own natural resources that sell to the West. They own corporations that sell to the West. Okay, Jeff Bezos, he moves to the Cayman Islands. All of his money comes from customers that live in the US and in Europe. The money comes from, so they can leave. It's a farce. Okay, you and I, we YouTubers, whatever, we can go and work from Dubai. Okay, if I own £1 billion, £2 billion of Italian or British assets and I move to Dubai, well, the assets are here. The assets are here. It's taxable. These people are the most taxable people in the whole. The reason they are not taxable is not because they can move to Dubai. I'll tell you why they're not taxable. Because they own the newspapers, because they own the think tanks, and because they fucking fund the politicians. That's why they're not taxable. It's this idea that they can go and disappear. There's a kind of perception that these guys are rich because they have like just money in a bag, a magic bag that they can take to Dubai. They're rich because they own your houses. They own your mortgages. They own your government debt. So I own the Italian government debt. I own the entire Italian government debt. I moved to Dubai. Where does my money come from? The Italian taxpayer. Of course you could fucking tax it because it's coming from Italy. This, honestly, to be honest, it's a myth propagated by rich people.
Well, I'm trying to be more quantitative. Like I own Italian debt. It gives me 2.5% interest per year. The tax me more than 2.5% per year. I will never own that on debt because I'm losing money, nominal money. How could this be implemented more than it already is?
Yeah, but you want to be taxing on all the wealth. You want to be taxing on all the wealth.
I'd be happy to be part of a study group how to implement things.
And you know what?
Nerdy. I mean,
as you know, so would I. And I know you've watched my video, so you know, like, listen, I'm like a geeky maths guy, and I don't like being famous. I didn't want to be famous. I would love to be in a room with all the geeks designing the tax policy. But as you know, that room doesn't exist. So I need to make that room happen. And I have to, now I'm...
What's the plan for that? I mean, last video where you talked about politics, for me, it was like 4 months ago, or even your last video on the channel, say something. Yeah. Do you have an updated plan? You've discussed with people.
Yeah.
How can you reach there?
So basically, like for me at the moment, I kind of see like there's two main things happening at the same time, which is number one, the channel has grown extremely quickly in the last even 6 months, to the extent that we probably have a little bit of political influence now. Realistically, all of my power comes from the channel. It comes from the fact that the British public watch the channel and they believe my views and they support it. And that gives me the power to influence, hopefully, maybe governments, but also lots of academics, think tanks, whatever. The second thing is like, I actually have to influence these guys because up till now I've been very focused on growing the channel. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Having a very big YouTube channel, if it's about politics, economics, it is a form of political power. But you only exercise that power if you try to actually influence the politicians. So it's grown so quickly, I kind of need to go back and start trying to like reach out to the Labour Party in the UK or think tanks, academics, and try to build a bit more, see like, can I actually leverage this here?
Do you reach out, or you already have your inbox full of people who want to do it?
So we opened a Patreon in Jan, end of deck, which means you have a little bit of money, which means we can hire a little bit of staff. So I'm thinking about...
You don't monetize your channel at all, maybe just default ads.
Yeah, I don't do ads in video ads. I don't think that's like, given what I'm doing, I don't think it's going to work. So yeah, so we got a bit of Patreon. We can spend a little bit of money. I need to start trying to like see whether I can pull any levers. Maybe I can't, in which case I need to think about growing the channel more. Do I need to support smaller political parties? We've had a lot of support from the Green Party in the UK. But obviously I would love to be doing more things like this, reaching out to like people in other countries to see how they're doing similar things. But it's the truth is the last 6 months of my life have been crazy, and it's just been like a roller coaster. So I need to go back and see like whether we've got influence, whether we can use that influence. But it's tricky because at the same time, all of my power comes from the channel. So I need to keep making good videos. We've got like, the book is being made into TV in the UK. We're trying to talk about getting a documentary made in the UK. So really, to be honest, I have to try to balance what I'm doing with like not going insane. But
how were you able to write a book, actually? I mean, I'm trying to write a book, but I have a whole lot of things to do.
So like,
Smaller than
the way it works, like I finished the book 1 year before publication. So hardback came out March 24. So I finished in March 23. It took me 9 months to write. So I started writing in June 22. Back then the channel was quite small. So actually now, I don't know if you watched any of my older videos. I used to like walk around like canals and stuff, walking down the street and this kind of stuff. And then the reason we shifted to like me at my kitchen is because when I started writing the book, like I had to severely reduce my number of shoot days, which meant that I had to shoot like 3 or 4 videos in one day. And the only way to do that was in the kitchen. So it's funny because now the kitchen is kind of iconic, but it was just like a way to save time. But back then, the channel was much smaller. I was just shooting with a mate. Yeah, so I was writing 5 days a week. The writing was a full-time job. I loved it, but I needed to do a lot of research. I love books. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of novels. I read a lot of fiction.
I'm scared because trends are that people read less. So I'm also not sure that like writing a book is the way to communicate in the future. But I mean, 200,000 copies.
I mean, it worked for me, but it's for me, it worked very well with the YouTube channel because the YouTube channel pushed. But really, basically, what the book got me was like a massive publicity campaign from Penguin, and also from Utili in Italy, and we had the campaign in Spain, and like it's a ton of free PR, and it's professional PR support. So like, if what you want is to blow your channel up, a book can be a great way to do it, but the truth is it's a big gamble because like my book ended up being successful. Most books don't. And obviously like, touch wood, buona fortuna per te. If you write your book, I hope it will be very successful. But like, I would say like it's worth sitting and thinking like, do you have a thing you really want to do, everything you really want to write? It needs to, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not you have the writing, then you have the editing, then you have the publicity. So like, yeah, you're right to think long and hard before you commit to it. But you know, it's one of the most enjoyable things, and it's probably the thing I'm most proud of in my life is the writing of it. Yeah,
something that stays can still be seen, read, and you consume it on layers. So that's sounds. I love last two questions. Then I'm sure. You have any? You had to sometimes in your videos or in the book had to tone down something because you felt like maybe I'm crossing a line or I can risk something personally or whatnot.
personally, there are issues which I'm reluctant to. So, for example, the immigration thing. I didn't want to talk about immigration because I'm not an expert in immigration, and it's such a divisive issue in the UK, and I suspect it's becoming that here as well. If it's not really for a long time.
I love your way of describing how fascists are right, like boring center, and it's immigrants' fault, and they go to the right,
Yeah, that's
solved it. It's like I always thought the same, but you said it perfectly in a video.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about that. There's other, there's so many issues that become taboo. Talking about things like inheritance. And I think immigration, I put it off. I didn't want to talk about it.
I was more thinking about something in the finance world, something like I've seen a lot of sheep. I cannot say everything.
Well, the only thing is I avoid saying like until the book came out, I never said I made this much money. The numbers I want in the book now. But I never said like I'm worth this much money just because in my experience, like no good comes from that. I just don't think it just creates envy and jealousy, which is not healthy. It's not productive for anyone. Otherwise, like, well, I don't really speak that much about my time in finance. That story is for the book. And obviously in the book, we had lawyers and stuff like it. His Penguin had their own lawyers. Yeah.
Your former colleagues, that anyone like reached out to even say, I would love to do something that the way that you did, but I cannot, or
Loads of secret. It's a funny thing. So I'm still in touch with a lot of my ex-colleagues. And when I first pitched the book back in, say, spring 2022, I wrote what is now part one of the book. So it's quite a lot, 20,000 words. I sent it to my agent. And then he goes back to him and goes, have you changed the names? And I was like, no, I haven't changed the names. He said, well, you have to change the names. And then all I did was I just messaged them all on WhatsApp. I said, I'm writing a book. What do you want your name to be? And they just send these like comedy names. But I think I don't think they realized, they just thought it's not going to be anything big, So I think, but like there's one guy who I worked with, he's like gone like kind of crazy. Like he's kind of obsessed with me, with the book. He's like trying to do any press he can. Like he got like a big article published with the Financial Times, which is not nice. Well, to be honest,
line, how can I say, as it say, the like stalking.
yeah, and then the slug from the book messaged me, and he just sent me this like very like threatening message on Instagram. Like, well, like I wouldn't say threatening, but like ominous sounding message on it, which I didn't reply to. But the opening scene of the book is me being threatened. Like it's a slightly mafia-esque world, the top levels of banking, and
Is there anything you miss from the world that you'll say, okay, apart from the huge money making machine?
I miss it so much. I miss like being. Obviously, it's nice. I was like a bit of a legend. Like especially amongst like the younger guys. Like because I was like this very successful, very young trader. Lots of people knew who I was, and you'd come in, and people would want to sit and watch you, and people look at you like, oh, that's the guy. It's kind of, and that was nice, and but I also miss the game of it. I miss like now I come out and I say we need to tax the rich and things get worse, blah, blah, blah. And people argue with me and it's frustrating because I need to win an argument, right? But when I'm on the trading floor, I go on and I say, hey, things are going to get worse. Economy's going to get worse. Living standards are going to get worse. If you argue with me, that's fucking great. I want everyone to argue with me. I want everybody to say I'm wrong, because if you all say I'm wrong, then I'm going to make so much fucking money. So it's nice to be in that space where like I don't need to win an argument. Because all I need is to be right. and then you're going to pay me and he's going to pay me and he's going to pay me. So like now it's frustrating to have to like, because I'm right on this. I'm right. It's happening. You know, how many times do I have to have my predictions be right before people accept that I'm right? And it's nice to be in that space. And also like at the end of the year, everyone has to turn around and say, who got it right? Gary got it right. And you know, like at the beginning of COVID, March 2020, I wrote an article saying inequality will increase, cost of living will increase, inflation will increase, stock prices, house price, gold price will increase. You know, these are fucking good fucking predictions. And my first video on YouTube says all of those things, June 2020. And, you know, nobody even fucking remembers, you know, but you're on the trading floor, people fucking remember that you were right.
Wow, there are trades stored somewhere, so you can prove it with the data.
Have you ever made like some wrong pitch? If you say you were 100% sure.
Well, I got to be honest, the only trade which I'm down on is Bitcoin. You know, I'm sure.
You are sure.
I'm short Bitcoin, yeah. It's not an enormous amount of Bitcoin, but I've lost money on Bitcoin. This is no denying it. I'm short Bitcoin, I've lost money on. That's the only, but give it time. Give it time.
Last question.
Yeah.
Has there been one single moment when you realized that, okay, I need to get out of this game, or I want to win? Have you ever? I tried to scan through your videos, but I never found like a single time you say the reason why, the exact moment of why you quit.
Yeah, listen, you know,
Something that
it would be easy for me to just say, well, you know, I saw the economy was going to collapse and I thought that was wrong and I wanted to do something, so I left. And like sometimes I do say that, but to be honest, that's like an extremely simplified version of the reality. And if you want to get the reality, not to be like buy my book, but like this is the story of the book, you know, like
Yeah, I've not read yet.
I was I was in there, you know, and I was just a young man. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to make money. I wanted to be the best, you know, like a lot of young men, like a lot of young people, like. And then I saw this shit was gonna happen, but it wasn't like, okay, I need to leave, like because I don't come from a political background. I don't come from yeah, but you know, like, well, what happened was you read the book, like I got sick, I got depressed, you know. You call it a burnout, you can call it a breakdown, call it what you will, but like I was sick. I got sick and I didn't really understand why. And the people around me didn't really understand why. Everybody thought like, you're making a lot of money, you're successful, your life must be great. But it was obvious I was sick, yeah. And the only person who really could see that was my girlfriend at the time. She was like, you're fucked, like what the fuck's, but everyone around me, because we live in this world that is so obsessed with money, especially when it comes to men, everybody thought, no, Gary's great, you know. But I was sick, you know. I bought a flat and I ripped all the furniture out. I didn't put any furniture in. I lost a lot of weight. I was down to like 50, 55 kilograms, something like that. Like I was living in a flat with no furniture and I was making like 2 million euros a year. And it was like, it was obvious I was sick, you know, but like nobody could see. And I think in a way, the decision didn't come from me. It was like a body. It was like the body was like fighting. My body said no. And you know, the last section of the book, which is set in Japan, I moved to Japan, and it's this kind of, I really wanted to slow the pace down and give this sense of depression and sense of wondering, you know, because it wasn't as clear. Like it wasn't like, now you know you have to leave. It was just like, fuck, like something's wrong, and I don't know what it is.
Thank you so much, Gary.
That's right. Pleasure to meet you.